This is the Minisforum V3 Windows tablet. It's another Surface clone, but is doing a lot of things right. But is it a good fit for illustrators? I'm not so sure. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals. This tablet is cool. It feels snappy, it's fairly light, the screen looks good, the pen is there, you could draw with it. Next to the Surface Pro, this looks like a really solid alternative. What are the downsides? Well, first of all, this is an MPP, Microsoft Pen Protocol Stylus, the same one that Microsoft is using with the Surface Pen. So you do get some wobble. Also, this tablet in general doesn't quite feel as premium as the Surface, especially when you get to the accessories. I think where this does shine is in the spec to price ratio. It's $1,500 list price. That's not cheap, but as of the time of this recording, it's hard to find it at full price. Minisforum is selling it directly for $300 off. Amazon has a coupon that you can apply for a discount. So it seems like this is the type of device you can get for a decent price. I have a discount too. My 2024 iPad discount is still running over on my Learn to Draw in 60 Days course at bradsartschool.com. If you're interested in learning art or just want to review some of the core skills and drawing fundamentals that are out there, check out my link down in the description to learn more. Now let's start with the specs. What makes this tablet special is the AMD Ryzen 7 8840U processor inside. I've seen a lot of game hardware sites reviewing this because it's not far off from the internals that some of these gaming handhelds out there right now have. Now I didn't go through the whole benchmarking process for gaming. That's not really my area of expertise, but I had some fun. And running Forza Motorsport, even at lower settings at 1440p, I was getting a solid 30 frames per second. If you want to bump that up, I could easily lower the settings even more, run this at 1080p, and you could do that. But what really impressed me was how not noisy it was. When playing a game, I could definitely hear the fans going, but they weren't like super loud. Most laptops sound like jet engines taking off once you boot up a game. And when I was drawing on this, the fans almost never spun up. And that's partially because AMD's chips tend to be more power efficient than Intel's. I did notice that the back does get pretty toasty with this thing when you're running it. Even when you're charging it, it does get warm. In fact, the screen gets warm as well. So when you're drawing on it, if it is plugged in, you're definitely going to notice that. You might want to wear a drawing glove so your hand doesn't get a little sweaty, start to stick a little. Now there's two configurations of this thing. One of them with 16 gigs of RAM and the other one with 32 gigs of RAM. Both of those configurations come with 1 terabyte of storage. This is a 14-inch 2.5K display that's 2,560 pixels by 1,600 pixels, which is a 16:10 ratio, and it looks pretty good, running at a solid 165 hertz. So it's a good screen for the price that you're paying for. The screen also has a matte finish on it. That's an anti-glare matte coating. So it's not a super rough matte coating though. It does provide a little bit of resistance when drawing, but not a ton, just a tiny bit, not quite as much as a screen protector, but any amount of resistance you can get is pretty good. There are 4 stereo speakers. They sound fine, not great. They're a touch echoey, because you have a really thin device. That's kind of normal here. There are 3 USB-C ports. One of them is a V-Link port, so you can turn this into a second screen to use with a computer or a laptop. One thing to note about that port is that I tried plugging a keyboard into it and the keyboard didn't work. I tried plugging the power cord into it and it didn't charge that way. So it appears that that one USB-C port on the left-hand side is only for the V-Link port and can't be used for other USB Type-C things, which is a little bit of a bummer because one of the other USB Type-C ports is going to be taken up for your power charge. Speaking of power charging, this of course comes with a power brick and a USB Type-C cable in the box, but this is only a 3-foot long cord. It's just long enough to go from your desk to the floor. It is not long enough to go from the floor up to your desk and over a few inches to plug into the laptop. I wish there was a longer cord. If you get one of these, you're going to have to invest in a longer USB Type-C cord. There's also a full-size SD card slot along the side here as well, and a headphone jack. The device overall weighs about 2 pounds. It's not super thin. It's a little over 10 millimeters, but the thicker device, the more airflow you get, the more battery they can fit in here. So it's not a bad trade-off. Now, when I took the tablet out of the box, I thought that the build quality wasn't too bad. It's a full plastic body that doesn't seem to smudge too bad with fingerprints. There's some ventilation along the back, along the sides, along the top edge as well. The buttons seem pretty clicky. All the things you look for seem to check out, but the accessories, that's where it started to feel like it was on the cheaper side. The good news here is that while Microsoft and Apple are charging a small fortune for their keyboard accessories, this tablet comes with the stand and the keyboard already. There's a two-piece cover. One magnetically connects to the back, has a surface-like kickstand. The hinge is really stiff, which is good, and you can pull it pretty far back for a comfortable drawing angle. The second piece is the keyboard cover. It magnetically attaches to the bottom. It folds up closed. It's held in place when it's closed with some very light magnets along the side, which keeps it from shifting around too much. Typing on the keyboard itself isn't bad. It's about what you'd expect from a super low profile keyboard cover like this. The trackpad, the easiest thing to mess up in these kind of devices, actually is pretty good. I didn't think it was wonderful, but it was better than I expected. I did mention that these accessories did feel a little bit cheap. So for the first 2 days I had it, I hated this thing, especially that back stand piece. It covers the air intake along the back, which for a tablet whose best feature is performance, seems kind of like a boneheaded design decision. But after a few days, I realized you could also flip the stand the other way. So you don't get as many angles doing that. It's kind of at a steeper angle, so it's not quite as comfortable to look at, but at least it doesn't cover those important air vents. There's also a little rubber flap seal along the entire edge of both the keyboard cover and the back cover. It's about 3 millimeters that it sticks out from the side of the tablet. Now, the Surface Pro has the same kind of design, but it also runs flush with the tablet itself. So when you're holding it, when you carry it around, it's not uncomfortable. They don't dig into your hands. It's not like it digs hard into your hands, but my main thing is that I'm worried about the durability. Whenever I pick it up, I can feel those bending. I can feel my hands wearing on them even after just a few days. There's little places on these accessories where it feels like it's going to start to fall apart, like the material on that back stand where the hinge is, it's already starting to flap up a little bit. I don't think this is going to wear too well. But the biggest problem with that back cover is that the magnets that hold it in place are super weak. So you're not going to open the hinge while it's attached to the tablet unless you place your hand on it and use your other hand to open it up. It's just going to pop off. Even when I was drawing or repositioning the device, it just falls off a lot. The keyboard connector is good. It's solid. It's going to stay in place. And there's extra magnets along the top so you can slide it up a little bit to put it at this nice little typing angle. But again, we got the weak magnets that hold that. So if you start typing or just rest your palms on it, it's going to flop down. I don't think any of these things are deal breakers. Well, the blocking the fan vent thing was a deal breaker, but since you can kind of get around that, I'll let that go. But I bring this up because the tablet itself might last you 4 or 5 years, but I don't see the keyboard cover lasting that long. So if you need to replace the keyboard, I don't know, 2 years from now, can you? Can you get the same keyboard that fits this particular device? I don't know. There's a very real chance the answer to that is no. You can get a Surface Pro cover from 5 years ago, no problem. There are third parties that make Surface Pro keyboard covers. So that's not something that's going to happen with a device like this that is less popular. The good news here is you can pair any Bluetooth keyboard with this device that you want, but this is something to keep in mind if you are thinking about longevity. Okay, the pen. This is an additional accessory. Its list price is $100, but like the tablet, it's actually hard to find at that price. Right now, Minisforum is selling it for $60 on their website, and this is an MPP, Microsoft Pen Protocol Stylus. And so the good news here is that any MPP stylus is going to work on this device. And the performance you get out of it is going to be just as mid-level as any other stylus that you get for this device. So the good news here is if something happens to your stylus or you need to replace it, you can get any MPP pen to work here. The bad news is it's still an MPP pen. You're not going to see like huge performance increases by changing out the stylus. This pen magnetically attaches to the top just for storage. It doesn't charge that way. There is a USB Type-C port along the side which allows you to charge up this pen. And we also have 2 clickable customizable buttons along the side of the pen. Now to conserve battery life, this stylus will power off if it hasn't been used for a few minutes. In theory, this is a good thing because your stylus is not going to just burn through battery while it's sitting on your desk overnight. In practice, kind of annoyed me. It seems that this thing turns itself off after like 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe it's a little bit more. It seemed very short. It's definitely under 5 minutes. So every time I put down the pen to tap the screen, do some other task, do anything else, and pick the pen back up and start to write, it just wouldn't work. I had to constantly be turning it back on. I was looking for some settings in Windows that might let me bump up that standby timer, but I couldn't find it. So I mentioned before, this is an MPP pen with all of the good and the bad that entails. The bad It's just not fun to draw with. It can be pretty inconsistent. There is some wave to the line. It wasn't super bad here. Actually, I should put an asterisk by it. When I first took it out of its package, set up the computer and was drawing with it, it was horrible. The next day, it was a little bit better. This is one of the things that frustrates me about a lot of the MPP devices I've used, is that they are inconsistent and sometimes they're just awful and you don't understand why. And overall, this stylus is just not up to par with everything else out there. Huion, Wacom, XP Pen, Apple's Pencil, Samsung's S Pen. These kinds of pens just aren't as responsive. So if you try drawing like short little lines, they don't always register. The pen doesn't always know if it should be drawing or being weighted on for like a long press action. So it has this very unnatural feel towards it. Also, it doesn't always feel like the stylus tip is lining up with where that cursor is appearing underneath it. This is one of those things that you can get used to and work around. Many people have and have created great artwork using these kind of pens. For me, there's just so much better stuff out there that I would just prefer to use that instead. I also found that the palm rejection here was not as good as it is with most MPP tablets that I've tried. That's usually a strength of these tablets. In Fresco, the palm rejection was horrible. I had to go into the settings and turn off a whole bunch of hand gestures because it just kept leaving dots and lines on my canvas where my palm was resting. It would change the layer. It would accidentally zoom me in and out. I kept doing these accidental undos. It was infuriating. It was bad. Turning off a lot of that functionality definitely helped, but again, you're losing some functionality when you do that. Microsoft has improved their MPP stylus, the Slim Pen 2 that you can get for the Microsoft Surface Pro. And on Surface devices, that pen tends to work better. They've added some features, they've added some functionality to it. It doesn't have the same kind of wave. It seems a little bit more natural. But here, using that stylus on this tablet, I got the same exact results. So same tech, same results. So this tablet was a real mixed bag for me. I understand why so many gaming channels are hyped for it. If that's what you're looking for that good performance at a good price, this is not a bad one to check out. But there are so many great tablets to draw on nowadays, it really is hard to recommend anything with an MPP pen. Also, I had never heard of Minisforum before, so I did a quick Google search to make sure that they are legit. Some overseas companies have been shipping ultra cheap PCs with spyware, malware, pre-installed. So it seems like Miniforums was in the clear. I ran some scans on it. I didn't find anything, but this is always a good thing to do if you're buying from a manufacturer that you've never heard of before. And if you are nervous about it, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get a bootable version of Windows on like a USB thumbstick. And when you get the computer, just install it fresh. Do your own thing. And that's the Minisforum V3. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.